Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Glad to be hanging out with you. I'm Satoshi Sean. Today we have a treat. My buddy Geoff McCabe is here of Divi and Siege Worlds and Lightning Works and lots of stuff. He's a big wig in the space for a long time. Very respected person. I don't know if you know that. You're definitely a respected voice in the sphere.
That's nice to hear. You never know what people are saying behind your back, right?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, there's a lot of people that you hear good and bad. A lot of people hear just bad, but I've never heard anyone say anything even behind your back that is anything but positive, man.
I think if they were saying anything bad, they'd be saying that I'm crazy because I'm doing too many projects at once and I need to stop and focus on just one thing. I've heard that before.
I've heard that. I've said that. I was like, it just seems like you're just always going. You said that though. You said your wife was like, hey, that's too much. You got to chill out.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard. It's what I'm doing is very hard, but to have a Divi is a layer one, and a layer one needs an ecosystem. So I just decided I was going to single-handedly.
I was talking about you and Divi today on the World Blockchain Roundtable, and how Divi was the first. Bitcoin really didn't even make me question, which is weird. The whole financial structure, how everything's laid out, but Divi really did, because it was such and is such a grassroots project, and it's just people saying, "This is money, this is what I want to settle in, this is what I trust," and that's it. And because we're talking about how Saudi Arabia is going to take anything to settle. Well, they're not taking just U.S. dollars, so they said they would take yuan, rubles, anything.
Yeah.
And I was thinking earlier this week about how there's nothing backing, the U.S. dollars. There hasn't been forever. You can say it's the government, but that really just means it's violence. Because what is the government? It's not real. It's just an idea. So the fact that I think that's what it was, the scariest thing for legacy financial institutions, is that people can see that how things work, and that if enough people say, hey, this is what money is, this Divi is what we want, Divi is what we settle on, Divi is money, that's just how it works now.
Yeah, I mean, people trade stuff all the time, and it's not really any different. People trading in different things. Some places people can trade in coconuts or whatever.
You made
just
the point,
the digital version of that.
You made the point to me a long time ago that you're talking about Dogecoin, how it's something you can say something doesn't have value, but that if enough people believe it does, that becomes the value. The network becomes the value,
right?
And all of a sudden that is really, really coveted.
I kind of jokingly refer to it as Ponzi-nomics, right? Because it has a Ponzi-like feeling, but everything is like that. Even like just art. If you're an artist and you're trying to sell your work, you don't sell it for very much in the beginning, right? Over time, you need to convince other people to come in and buy it and push the price up. I mean, it's like you could eventually, your paintings can be worth thousands of dollars if you can convince enough people to want them and to think of them as being valuable. And it has no difference. There's no value behind it. Like, oh, it's worth more because I put more hours in this painting, or I use more red, and red is more valuable as a paint than green because it has more expensive chemicals in it. This kind of thing. None of that matters. It's all about the value that the network, the community, assigns to it, and everything is like that. So, even though I jokingly call it, Ponzi-nomics, it helps to think of it that way, because it helps you in some ways differentiate between, well, what is really a Ponzi scheme and what isn't, because crypto is not actually a Ponzi scheme. I mean, there are people that have developed Ponzi schemes using blockchain, but crypto has that kind of feeling to some people that don't really understand the differentiation between the two.
Yeah, people say that to me, and I'm like, do you understand what a Ponzi scheme is? Do you know how it works? Call it pyramid schemes. So they're not,
Yeah, pyramid, Ponzi, they're different, right? And crypto is neither of those. It's really just a matter of having enough people that believe that this digital token, has value. And it's completely a legitimate thing, because like I said,
which is where utility comes in. Then that's That's where you can argue the value. But basically, like you said, when it comes down to it, it's just people. Your network can become the value.
Yeah, I mean, like what about like old coins? They're worth more than the face value. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people think they are, and and it gets, and people get excited. Like there forms a community of coin collectors who think, oh, this is really cool. It's fun to try to find them, to buy them, to collect them, to look at them. That's kind of like what NFTs are, right? So they become more valuable over time, and the more people that believe that they have value, the more valuable they'll get because there's a scarcity to them. So
Speaking
NFTs are
of
just a digital version of
NFTs,
that.
last time we talked, about 4 months ago, we talked. I think we were talking about Siege Worlds, and we talked about Lightning Works before the comics before that. And now we are here. You've got your NFTs launching.
Yeah, we launched a couple of hours ago, and so we're selling the first ever. We think it's not only is it the most complex NFT ever launched, ever, but it's also, we think, the first interactive comic book. There's hardly any comic books have been released on the blockchain so far. There are a
Which is
few,
weird.
and there's more that are coming. It is weird because it's such an obvious use case for it.
Digital comics have been around for a while.
Exactly,
but,
and Marvel and DC have both been working on them. Marvel worked with Veve. They basically licensed them to release old issues, back issues. It's like free money for them.
Mm-hmm.
But they've got, even though Veve is on IMX blockchain, and IMX is a side chain to Ethereum, basically set up for gaming and for NFTs. Even though they're on that blockchain, they have users in a closed ecosystem. So you have to go to the Veve app. You have to do everything the way they tell you to do it. You can't go to OpenSea and trade your Marvel comics. And that's, to me, it's really not a good way to do this. It's just,
Vive's very closed.
It's very closed, and DC is the same way, and it may be part of their contract, right? Like they don't want it on the open market, so they can control it. I really don't know, but I don't find that many people that are interested in NFTs are interested in Veve or DC NFTs because they're not on the open market. It's just they're not adhering. They're using blockchain, but not adhering to the principles of decentralization and open markets the way what we're doing. So we've built basically a whole technology stack that does everything we think the right way, while also developing some ways to make it really easy. And we have some centralized sort of Web 2 components as well to bring people in to make it easy.
Well, your NFTs they're all written with HTML, right?
Yeah, so our comic books are HTML5, and it's very interesting because I advise a lot of other NFT projects, and often they'll be doing something like a JPEG. And then I say, well, why don't you just wrap the JPEG in an HTML5 wrapper and put it on OpenSea? Then if somebody clicks the JPEG, you can turn on some music, or you can send them an email, or you can do almost anything, It's just like a website. It's weird that nobody's thought of this. The people that have thought of it are the OpenSea people, though. And they've, you can go to OpenSea, and OpenSea allows HTML5, but just nobody uses it. It's a little bit more complex, and just people take each other's smart contracts and launch generate art. You can get generate art done on Fiverr for like $500 to launch an NFT. Mm-hmm. And you can get somebody to launch it for you for a similar amount of money. So there's the barrier to entry to doing an NFT is almost nothing. And it really doesn't matter about the art, right? People aren't buying these because of the art as much as people say they are. It has almost nothing to do with that. That's just sort of one data point. If the art's really, really bad, then, and it's not bad enough to be good, because that's another possibility, right? If it's bad enough, it becomes good. But if it's just bad, then no one will buy it. But it's really all about marketing and the NFT thing, trying to create enough hype. So we're trying to get away from that with what we're doing with the comic books, and really build a real community, because comic books build really strong communities. You just have to look at like Marvel and DC right now and how angry their communities are at the way they're changing the stories, and they're doing these mantle changes for the characters. People are furious. I mean, they're so mad on you never see any influencers this angry on anything as these Marvel and DC influencers are right now at people for
Well, it doesn't make
wars.
sense
Yeah.
that you're like, hey, this IP is cool and people like it, and we're going to do this, but we're going to make it not what it is. It's like, and why wouldn't you just make something new? You know,
it's just so stupid in my opinion. But it actually makes perfect sense. What they're doing, the reason it makes sense is that Marvel and DC have both sold their companies to much bigger conglomerates, and they make all their money with merchandising and movies on a global scale. And so their idea is that if they can just change these characters so that they appeal to a more global audience by having more races and more languages and more countries, they don't give a shit about the people who've been collecting comic books for 20 years, because
there's also a new phenomenon
Yeah,
that's called hate watch, which just really came. A great example of it is the past like 2 weeks, which everyone's known. Like your biggest viewers are people that hate you, people that follow you on social media just to talk trash. You can just look at anything Roger Ver posts, and literally there's bot accounts that like, because he's mentioned me or retweeted something, and then a tweet will pop up, and it's like I was tagged. I'll look, and it's these bot accounts like Roger Ver just retweeted what Satoshi Shawn said. It's so weird to me, but in this new economy of influence and attention, this hate watch has become kind of. There's still clicks. There's still people looking at it. So this news we're talking about, this fits in with what we're talking about. This new Velma show. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah,
it's
and I've seen the FUD around it. It's the same thing with She-Hulk.
No, She-Hulk. This is just bad. It's literally like The Witcher. The writers didn't like the IP. They didn't like the story. They didn't like it. The only thing that kept it together was Henry Cavill. These people, they hate Scooby-Doo. I mean, it's so obvious. They like changed everything. They made it cringy. It's just bad, but they changed everything. It's like these people are lesbian and they're straight, and these people, and they try to be like self-aware all the time. It's like, hey, don't you hate it when shows do this, and then they're doing it? But it's like not once or twice. It's constant. It's just the worst show ever, and critics hate it. And everyone, like you said, there's FUD everywhere, but it's from both sides. Usually, critics are like, "Oh, this is amazing," and then the audience score is super low. So everyone hates this, and they got approved for a second season because of all the hate watch.
Yeah, I've been studying this, and because we don't want to make the same mistakes. I mean, the hard thing is when you try to change something that already has a fan base, right? If they weren't doing that, then people would just either not like it or and not watch it, right?
Or not care.
They wouldn't be able to hate, right? Usually, so it's when you change things, people get upset because you're messing with their childhood. These characters you loved, that you grew up with. I watched Scooby-Doo every Saturday, right, for years. So
I own.
So don't mess with it.
I own every Scooby-Doo thing there is.
And when
everyone's ever come out, the obscure stuff, I own it. Because I used to. It was like my favorite cartoon as a kid.
And I remember as a kid, they were starting to make these kind of things in comic books. Sometimes they would try to make it into a movie or a TV show. They were trying to do that with the Hulk and all these things. And the first question you would go to is like, well, how much is it like it? Like it was really obvious that was like the most important way you could judge it, was how faithful to it did it make you feel like it. If it didn't, you would just instantly hate it.
Yeah.
And like I remember I did watch the Incredible Hulk show. Like it was so bad when you look at it now, like but they were they did their best, right? And we still watched it because it was decent.
I think it was great. I still watch it now, and it's like, for the time, it was all right, man. You did pretty good,
And Lou Ferrigno and all that, but
yeah,
it was. But the thing is that I wonder though, even though they're alienating all their fans, I wonder what younger people are thinking when they watch this stuff, because the reality is that they may not be that interested in older fans. They may be trying to build a new fan base, and maybe this way.
What, about Velma?
Yeah, I mean, maybe
no, it's an adult cartoon with they show butts and stuff and nudity.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So then it's just stupid. Well, it's just stupidity.
Totally,
but,
yeah.
But anyway, what my point was that you really capture people when they're like in junior high and high school. That's a time where your viewers, your readers of a comic book are very, they're searching for answers. They're getting a brain. They're thinking for themselves. And when you watch one of these shows, or you are reading a comic book, that's when you start to identify with these characters. You struggle with their hero's journey, and you see them succeed over time. Manga is so good at doing this, right? And when that happens to you, when you go through their and you live with these characters through their ups and downs, to ultimately usually winning in the end and becoming really powerful and respected, and everybody loves them. That's like the journey that kids are. Like they're discovering themselves. They're thinking of who they are. They're thinking about becoming an adult, and so it really appeals to them. So if you catch them at that age, you have fans for life. And then you get to make lots and lots and lots of money off selling the merch and movies and everything forever, as long as you don't screw it up. So what I'm wondering is if these, generally these big companies, there's something smart about them. They have some pretty smart people that run them, and they have the money to do, hire psychologists, and they have the money to do polling and stuff. So I wonder if they know something that we don't. In that they know that if they just do this for enough years, well, sure, they'll push away a bunch of people, but they'll gain even more. And so it's a long-term investment in their future by getting a new market, because the younger markets don't like the old IP, so they're trying to reinvent it in that way. I don't know if that's the case, but that's the only explanation that I have for why they're doing this. So I guess what I'm saying is we won't really know for another 4 or 5 years whether these plans are working, because they're all doing it. They're doing it with DC. I mean, they're doing it with all this old IP. They're obviously recreating it in a new way for some new market. So I don't think we can know right away whether it's going to work.
Well, like Buffy Vampire Slayer, I think it was the 7th season. That was all digital comics. It was all 100%, because they kind of gave up on doing the live action thing, but they wanted a 7th season.
Yeah, there was another show that did that. I remember I watched some show for like 1 or 2 seasons, and then they didn't continue the show, and I was so mad. But I found out they made a comic book of it, and so I went and bought it. But it wasn't very good, and so I only read 1 issue, and it didn't continue.
So tell me about what the NFTs that are out now. What can people expect from it?
Yeah, so
especially you can go into the long-term stuff, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, so we have it's our first comic. This comic was actually ready a year ago, more than a year ago. I look back on my files and I'm like, oh my God, this has been sitting here for a year but it's because we've been building all this technology to support it, for ways for people to read it, ways for people to sell it, ways for people to trade it. We have all this stuff around launching it. It's not just a bunch of JPEGs, right? The other people that have been doing the comics, the handful that are out there, is just a bunch of JPEGs like in a PDF. Ours are actually animated and they're interactive. For example, every one of these comics, somewhere in it is an Easter egg, where if you click it, it'll pop open a window and you can then get another NFT, and an NFT will be a weapon related to the character, and you can use that weapon. It's on the open market. It's minted right there on the spot while you watch, right into OpenSea, and you can then use that in our video game. How do you do
that without gas?
They have to pay the gas to do it. So yeah, they have to do it. No, actually, no, that may not be true. I think these weapons were doing it on Polygon, if I remember right. So, and we're paying the gas fee. It's like 2 cents or something. So it won't cost that much. So at least for right now, you have to be careful what you promise. With no one expected gas fees for Ethereum to be what they are. I mean, right now we're minting the comic book and we're charging $7, and the gas fees are like $12. So people are paying more in the gas for the comic, but it's so cheap what we're doing. I mean, it's not just a number one issue for a comic, it's a number one issue for a company and a number one issue for an entirely new technology. So it's really what we're talking about, like a blue sky kind of situation where we have no idea like how big this might get, but we do believe that the future of NFTs is going to be stories in comics in different ways. It's just so much more appealing, and it solves a much bigger problem. The JPEG thing does with the Bored Apes and all this is really interesting from an art and sociological point of view. It's become a cultural phenomenon, but it doesn't actually solve a problem or a need. There's trying to be a community around these things, but it turns out these communities have very little staying power. The community is only about pumping the price, and people are excited and feel like they're a team while the price is going up. But the moment it starts going down, people just move on to something else.
Well, I think that's kind of what you said. There's not a lot of stories, so people aren't invested.
Right.
They're invested. That's a funny word. All of a sudden,
it's exactly
but
the right
investing
word.
their time and their emotion.
Yeah, their heart.
The emotion's a huge thing. The first game, I mean, I've been playing games since Pong. I'm old.
Me too.
I was playing like Atari was like the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And the first game that I ever,
the space shuttle. It was like the coolest thing.
The first game I ever cared about in a weird, like in a connected way, was Last of Us. Like, I cared about the characters to where I didn't like the end. Like I mean, for days it bothered me. It was like, like a friend died or something.
Oh yeah, I feel like that every time.
I was that invested in it.
Uh-huh.
And the new show came out, which that's amazing. It's perfect. They're so committed to the original, like the IP. It's like even street signs and little things that only the gamers would notice are in there. But that emotional investment is one of the reasons why. And that there's a Fallout game or a show coming on Amazon.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. I love playing Fallout.
And then like Walter Scoggins is in it. It's like it's a big, big money, big production. But those games I'm like so emotionally invested in. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm not a big reader, so I can understand, like, especially like my nieces and nephews. My kids, they were so into Harry Potter that I think the movies meant something more. And I'm feeling that now with The Last of Us. When it came out, I was like, oh man, this is so.
I haven't played it. The trailer looks amazing, and it looks really like it has a lot of heart. So I guess I should play the game because I love zombie shooters. We're actually working on a zombie shooter right now that's going to blow people away because we have a new technology that can have. I don't know. My partner today told me between 600 and 1,000, and that's just the way it is right now. We expect to do more. That means that like a group of friends will be able to fight like a horde where you actually see that many zombies on screen at once, like a giant horde extending into the distance. Interesting.
Yeah.
There's no game that can do that.
There's videos on YouTube where PC people will just do that. Just a 100,000, zombies face off against, 50,000.
Yeah. So that's different. You can
I watched that last night for like 30 minutes.
Oh, it's really fun to watch. They have it where they have like 10 Superman against 200 Godzillas. This kind of thing. Then they fight with different characters. It's not very good. Like the powers are using and stuff. The AI is not very good, but it will get better, and it's very fun to watch.
It's very fun to watch.
But what you're talking about, that is something where you're running on your own computer, or maybe doing it where you play with, where you host the game yourself and then a friend dials in. Well, you can do a lot of monsters that way. Well, what you can't do is what we're doing, is where you have a centralized host, and then you have a massive multiplayer with a whole bunch of people, and then a massive number of enemies. If you go and look at like Call of Duty, they have a horde game. It's a horde zombie game, and you never see more than like 16 zombies at once on the screen, even though they call it a horde. It's like a really sad and pathetic horde. Ours, I mean, did I show you the demo of it, like how big our horde is? And that was the first generation. We're already on the third generation. So
no, I don't think so.
It's hundreds of them. You should bring it up. Go to go to YouTube, then type in Siege Worlds, and you can show it here because it's really impressive. I've never actually played it. It's just a demo. There's so many of them that my partner who did the demo is like running on top of their heads, like across the top of them. They're so packed together.
Now, the Easter eggs for the hidden objects, those are for Siege Worlds?
Yeah, it's for the Siege Worlds game.
Okay.
And so what's cool about it, and nobody's ever done this before, is that our game and our comic are the same, in that what happens in the comic book, as the story progresses in the comic book, we'll be adding new chapters to the game. So the idea is to try to get people to feel like they are the heroes in the game. You can play those heroes, or you can make your own, and then we tie them together. Like, for example, there's so many things. I mean, your creativity can run wild with ideas, but this is a good example. In the game, you may find a door, and you need a key to open it, but you don't know where that key is. But the players can look around the world and maybe try to find it. Maybe it's hidden somewhere. But if nobody finds it, when the comic book comes out, the players will be searching for that key, and they'll find it. And then you'll learn from the comic book how to find where that key is, so then you can go there in the game and then get the key. So it's this kind of thing that combines the two things and makes you feel like you're part of the story. We can use these characters then with the story to create a lot of emotional impact because of what they're feeling and their backstories and stuff. So that's how we get people's heart involved with the story. Then when they play the game, they have a lot more heart in the game. It's something that's never been done before, and we think it's really part of the future of Web3 entertainment, as we call it.
So on the NFT, you've got 7,777, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what are the rarity tiers?
Okay, so common, uncommon, rare, epic, legendary, and then divine. Now, the way it works is that you can only get the first 5. You can't get a divine. What you can do, though, is if you have 3 commons or 3 uncommons or 3 rares or whatever, you can forge them, we call it. Mm-hmm. It burns those 3. Basically, you're sending it, the app sends it to a zero address. And then it mints you a new one that's a guaranteed higher tier. So if you mint 3 commons, you can have a chance now at getting a divine. But you're guaranteed at least an uncommon if you get 3 uncommons.
It's the same for weapons in Siege Worlds, right?
Yeah, it's the same thing in weapons with Siege Worlds, right? And so people, and it's interesting, you know, we know that gamification works, but I was shocked at how well it works. Like, we have people, but as soon as we added this gamification of the weapons with the forging in the game, people were playing 10, 20 times as much. I mean, there's people that spend like 12 hours a day doing it. There's people that are like earning a living doing it right now. That's all they do all day, is they're playing the game, and then they're selling these weapons that they're finding by killing monsters to other players that want them for forging. So for example, it's hard to get a rocket launcher, but if you have 2 and you need 1 more, you can level up your rocket launcher. So other players who you know, $20 is a lot of money. If they get a rocket launcher, they might sell it. And then somebody that's like in New York or somewhere like that, $20 is nothing. And they're like so hell bent on getting a better rocket launcher that they'll pay for it. You know, we've had people paying $20, $30, $40 for weapons already. And we don't even have that many players. We haven't even really announced the game. It's still an alpha, but because it's very addicting to people.
That's a very cool feature. Just the fact that you can interact and give something. Fallout 76, like me and my kids play, but it's just the fact that like one of us can give someone something else, you know, go pick it up. We can go to their camp and drop it off. And it's like, it's such an awesome feature to have, and to be able to interact with other players and buy stuff. I can see that, because that's something I don't like about the new Fallout is your stuff breaks and you have to fix it. Whereas the old, I think it was New Vegas, you could take a 45 and just you break it, but you could use it to fix your other 45. If you had 2 of the same guns, you didn't have to get the parts to fix it. You just combined your 2 guns and you had a gun that was all fixed.
Oh yeah,
I like the forging. It was one of the I was really excited about when you told me about with the weapons. Also, because you're out, if you're just grinding and playing, you're like, another level 2 gun. You don't even pick it up. You know, it's a waste, but that's
exactly
a way to
that's exactly what I said. That's why
you're still looking, and that's another reason to play, is because you're always going to find something that you can make something better. And if you can get financially rewarded, that's super awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's when I play these games, like you mentioned Fallout, what happens is your inventory gets filled up, and then you have to sit there, and I don't like that, like the fact that you have a limited inventory and you have to throw stuff away and leave it. Yeah, sure, it's more realistic, but for me, maybe I'm a natural pack rat or something, but I like to accumulate the stuff, and I figure everything has a use for it someday, and I don't really want to go and figure that out. So I'd rather just be able to keep everything and just keep forging stuff to reduce your inventory by forging. And so I think, you know, that's the thing with these games. There's always, if you're passionate about something, you like something, there's definitely other players out there that think the same way, and probably a lot of them, especially with a global market. That's exciting about Web3, right? But really, in the old days, things can succeed only because people in the establishment, the elite, or the government, or the people at the top of corporations, or the people that run media companies, they get to decide what's going to be popular. Now with Web3, anybody can do anything. Nobody can stop you. And the global markets gets to decide what they like. And so that means, though, I mean, there's some downsides, but the upside is that even if you're just 1 in 1,000 of what you think is the coolest thing ever, then there's going to, and that's true globally. 1 in 1,000 people globally is still a, you know, market of
a lot of people.
What is that, 80 million, something like that?
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
You said there's also future NFTs that you can get with it and future discounts. How's that going to work?
Wait, that's the question again.
Pass holders will get future free NFTs and discounts on future NFTs.
Okay, yeah. So, you know, most NFT projects have a genesis, and that genesis is the one that usually is the most valuable. Like the Bored Apes, they have their genesis, which is the Bored Ape. Then they have the Mutant Ape. So we did something that's called a portal, and we sold them. We sold 777 of them. And it has a new type of use case that's never been done before in the NFT market, which is that if you own one of these, then you get free comic books, free other NFTs, but you also get a share of the distribution of future comics. So after this comic that we're releasing right now, the Siege World Zero, this one we're not running through the portals because we don't have the tech ready. But after that, we'll have it so that 2/3 of all the supply gets distributed through the portal holders. So they become like a comic book store. Like if you could imagine that Marvel and DC, they sell a very large amount of their supply through comic book stores. And so in order to have part of that supply, you need to own one of these portals. Or it's like a fishing license. A friend of mine his family had a fishing license in Alaska. There were only a few hundred of them available. And if you had one of those, you could catch as much fish as you were able to. And so instead of just letting everybody fish and trying to somehow control how much fish each person was able to take, they just limited the number of licenses and said, just take all you want. So that way they controlled it and keep it from being overfished. So this is kind of like a fishing license in a way. If you own one, it's valuable, and you can sell that license to somebody else. You can sell your portal to somebody else. And there's different tiers. There's common through divine. So depending on which tier you have, more of the distribution goes through you. So for example, if we did a comic book where you have maybe we're going to launch, say, 10,000. We're going to mint 10,000 of a comic book. I'm making up numbers, but it's roughly like this. If you have a legendary, you might have an allocation of 300 that you get to distribute. If you have a common, you might have only 3. So what happens is that you get to decide at the time of minting. You have a window of 2 to 3 months where you can decide, do I want to just buy these and try to resell them unrevealed, where people don't know what it is? Or you can buy them, you can reveal them. You could keep the best ones. Like if you get an epic or a legendary, you keep it, then you sell the others. Or you could say, oh, I got 3 commons, I'm going to forge these and see what I get. Or you might get 1 epic and 2 commons and say, oh, I'll just buy 1 more common and forge these. There's so many options, right? Or you could decide not to mint at all. You're like, I don't really like this comic. It doesn't seem very popular. I'm just not going to mint it at all. I'm not going to pay any money. Why am I going to pay even half price if I don't think I can sell it? Or nobody's going to like this. People don't like these characters. People are bad-mouthing it. I just won't sell it. So if your window runs out, then it just never gets minted. And that's fine, because it just means there's less supply. There's less supply, the others will be worth more. And especially with the forging of those comic books over time, the supply will go down, 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 down. Eventually you get to the right number where the value starts to go up. And then what we do is, as the story develops, if we do our jobs well as storytellers and character creators, more people will get interested in that. But meanwhile, the supply is going down or has already gone down a lot. So then people will want some of those because more collectors will come in, because we'll be providing special use cases and freebies to people that have like all of the sets. Like if people have one of every comic we've ever made in their wallet, they can get something free. Or maybe if we could do it by number, we could say, well, if everybody has if you have 3 of the same mint number, like 3 number 725s or whatever, some special person's birthday is or whatever, we're going to give everybody that has that a free NFT today, something really cool, or even just send them a t-shirt. So there's so many different ways that you can with Web3 and blockchain, because you don't have to know people. You can just look in the blockchain and see what they have. They can be fully anonymous, and you can still send them, say, an NFT that they can redeem for a t-shirt. So they could stay completely anonymous, and still we can find them and involve them and stuff. You cannot do that with anything other than blockchain. And so it opens up this incredible world of possibilities of building community and connecting the founders and the community with new people coming in, different ways to reward them. And so NFTs have this phenomenal potential that's nowhere near been touched on with what we've seen so far, because people are so over obsessed with Bored Apes and the JPEG phenomenon. That's, it's the whole thing is crash and burn. OpenSea's down 99% in their volume, and they're the best. I mean, they're the biggest and the best of all of them. Imagine how the others must be struggling with that type of drop. They've all hired all these people, and now they're laying off everybody like crazy. And we have we have a problem with our collection right now. We cannot get anybody at OpenSea to even take a look at it. And I have 2 friends that know people. Like I have a friend that knows one of the co-founders, and they're just a mess, with these kind of right now dealing with the crash. It's hard for crypto, but NFTs are really gutted. And it's because it just doesn't really make sense. Like it doesn't. There's a whole bunch of problems with the tokenomics of the NFT space that have led to a tremendous amount of bad actors coming in many different ways, all through the system. And the way the whole thing's promoted, it's terrible. Mm-hmm. You launch an NFT, and you're expected to like basically have VCs that go and buy up your supply and get thousands.
So the lack of utility is just one of the biggest things.
Yeah, and it's just there's no real community. There are a few that have real community. There's Alien Worlds. They have 200,000 active users. Mm-hmm. And there's a few others, that if you have a fun game or you have something cool you're doing, or you build your community slowly and carefully over time. Like if you look at the interactions in Alien Worlds of what's going on, how many transactions, it hasn't fallen at all. The rest of the NFT space has crashed horribly, and Alien Worlds hasn't fallen at all, because they're not reliant on that. And that's what we're trying to be, right? We're trying to do something that's not reliant on the ups and downs and craziness of all the NFT speculation. Although right now, I mean, at this very moment we just launched, right? So there's people coming in. We have a ton of NFT speculators, and most of them are not there to like learn about stories and our characters. They don't even know who they are. I doubt they even read about the characters. Right now, they're there because they're like, oh, this is a #1 comic in the world. This could probably be pretty valuable. So a lot of them will try to flip it for double or even 20% more just to make a little money.
What about the staking rewards?
Well, so staking we're not doing, and that's one of another problem with the NFT space is a lot of people are creating illegal tokens. They're definitely securities, and they're adding staking to these NFTs. And I get a lot of pressure, like, Geoff, you got to add staking to NFTs because staking's in right now. Everybody's doing it, But I already know. I mean, we've been doing this since 2017. You don't want to get on the bad side of the SEC.
The website says you're going to have future staking rewards.
Yeah, so we can do it in the future, but you can't just do it, right? You have to go through a whole process of registering it as a security or doing it in just the right way. Like one of the ways to do it is if you block out all Americans or anybody living in the U.S., which means you have to do a whole KYC process, which is against the tenets that we believe in. So we don't want to do it that way. You can register it as a security. I heard an offer recently. Somebody would do that for $300,000. Takes about 6 to 12 months, and then we could just sell it to anybody as a security. That's actually a good way to go if you have the money to do that and want to do it. There's other ways to do it with free launches and stuff. So we're looking into a way to do it that really, what it really comes down to is if the value is created by a third party, right? Meaning us, as the founders, as the company owners, if we're the ones creating the value by creating use cases where the value is because of us, then it's a illegal security offering, and it's a criminal offense. It's not like we just necessarily give you a fine. It's a criminal offense, and you can go to jail for it. Now, most companies, of course, they get out of going to jail because they just pay off a fine if they have a lot of money, like what EOS did. But anyway, we want to do that right, so we're not going to just do it just because everybody's pressuring us to do it. We really want people to be focused. We want them to be focused on the whole ecosystem, really, because people can make money from this. These are collectibles. If you're buying a collectible and it's a comic book or it's a really cool PFP and it's the first appearance of that character, and it has use cases, people will buy it because it's collectible. But we also want people in because of the comic books and the stories. So for us, it's an ideal kind of ecosystem where you can have fun with the stories and the characters, and you can make money. And that's what comic books ultimately does, right? Even as a kid, I was interested in how much these comics were worth, and I would buy number one because I thought someday these are going to be worth some money, right? So we're trying to do the same thing. I mean, it's just really a recreation of the whole vibe of the comic book space, trying to move it into the digital world and doing it not the way Marvel and DC are with these pseudo-centralized things, but by doing it in a much more open way. So it's on global markets with OpenSea and everything else.
And the game, Choose Rules Play to Earn, that's been going for a while with Divi.
Yeah,
I've been watching, and some people are making $1. Some people, one guy said he made like $200 his best week last week, which is
So they're not actually. I'm just giving the Divi away out of my pocket right now. I actually just talked with the Litecoin team, some of them a couple of days ago, about adding Litecoin to it and having like a Litecoin faucet. So it's not, you don't earn a lot of Divi. The way people are earning money though is by getting these weapons and then giving them to people that want to forge and selling them, because we have a market there. They're not NFTs yet. The idea is that if you can forge your way up to a level 5, then you can mint an NFT out of it. Pay the minting fee, and then you can customize it, so you can give it a cool name, so it's like, it's really cool when something has a name and it can be something that's passed around from people to person, especially as you get up into the legendary weapons and beyond. There's really kind of no limit, but because you need 3 or 4 more of that same tier, it becomes very hard. So like Ryan Berg already forged a level 7 weapon, which we thought would take people months, and he did it. Like he just became obsessed with getting the first ever level 7 weapon, and he did. And by buying them off the market, by playing constantly, and so he has a level 7, and so he's going to be able to mint that into an NFT someday, and it'll probably be the first ever level 7 minted, by somebody, and he'll get to give it a name and a description, whatever he wants, and ultimately we'll allow people to actually like design it. So there'll be a weapon designer where you can push and pull the 3D shape of it. You can add your own colors, maybe add a texture. The way our texture maps work right now, you can't easily add textures to weapons, but anything you can do to customize it, people will like. Even just like the muzzle flash out of a gun, if you could design that somehow and make it shoot flowers, or just something like cool like that, where you could design the muzzle flash. People love this kind of stuff. People want to.
Yeah, and you need to customize. That's why the mod community is always so huge.
Yeah, and
on that, what about this comic creator app? Can you talk about that a little?
Yeah,
that looks really cool.
Yeah, so we have a dozen or so technologies that nobody's ever done before with NFTs. A creator app we've been working on for over 2 years, and I don't know if you can see it right there. Maybe you want to play is that a video? Yeah. So basically, what you're seeing there is the actual demo with the app. So we basically started from scratch, and we built an app that looks something like Photoshop and other graphic design programs. You can see how that looks there with all the different tools. So we have different tools where you can basically import your art from Photoshop, Illustrator, or somewhere else. And then you can layer it and you can build an NFT, or you could even build an entire comic book. You can add sound, you can add animations. Then you can choose the blockchain that you want to launch it on, and you choose your tiers, and you just put in all the data. It's really so much work doing all this, but we're going to make it very easy with forms and being able to cut and paste what you're doing. So that's showing like probably an animation. So we're basically creating all these HTML5 based animations, because the normal way that people would do this is they would make everything into movie files, but it's impossible basically, because you can imagine all these movie files. You've got a 24-page comic book. Each one of those pages has on average 5 or 6 cells. So now you got to have over 100 different movie files so it would be, just massive data storage. So what we're doing is taking ping files, transparent pings and JPEGs as backgrounds, which are light, and then we add HTML effects. So we build like fire, we build hair, we build this out of HTML. It's built out of code. That's actual, like that fire there is not like a transparent movie file. It is code. So, there's just a bunch of formulas that tell the program where to put the pixels and what color and how to move them around. And that means it's very, very light. And so we can create all these cool animations. Now, of course, you can't do anything and everything. It's hard to do certain things, but the HTML5 is getting more robust, and our team is getting better and better at figuring out really cool ways to create special effects using code rather than very heavy pixel-based movie files, right? So that means our users will be able to create comic books very easily. What we'll also be adding is AI type of stuff, so that, for example, that those clouds in the background, right? You should be able to click it and generate, and have the AI generate for you a few different skies. You pick the one you want. It goes on there, and it looks different from every other sky that you've ever seen. You can do that for a road. You can do it for a forest. AI is very good at doing that kind of stuff. AI is not very good at drawing a very specific character, especially continuity of character in different poses or different facial expressions. That may be coming in the future, but right now you can't do that. And so we're just going to do what we can do, and use AI as a tool that's appropriate in the right way, that just makes it easier and better for users. So that's basically what it can do. And what we want to add to it as well is things like crowdfunding and crowdsourcing. So like if you have a good idea for your comic book or your NFT, you can basically, with the app, get a bunch of people that are willing to help fund it, like a Kickstarter, and then they'll get one automatically printed for them on the blockchain, or maybe 2 or 3, or they could be added to the comic book itself, like in the thanks list. There's a lot of different things that you can do that can make it into kind of a Kickstarter thing. And as far as crowdsourcing goes, my real dream is that comic book creators act more like a producer, where they have a really good idea for a story, and they can write out a treatment, and maybe they can hire a script writer that's an expert to write out the script, and then they hire an illustrator, then a colorist, and then an animator, and that person, and basically you put together a team, and then you launch it all together, and then everybody gets paid off the blockchain every time it's sold. Everybody gets paid.
And what about the free Platinum Edition comics?
Well, so if you have a portal, then if you have one of our 777 portals, which are, you basically act as a digital Web3 comic book store, then you also get a Platinum comic. So every time we release a comic, we're going to do a second series that you get for free. So everybody will get one. We haven't decided exactly. I think that we'll probably do probably this first one, we're going to give everybody one. In the future, probably if you have a common or uncommon, you'll just have a chance to get one. And if you have a rare or above portal, then you automatically get one. That way they'll be even more scarce and sought after.
And the portals are done for sale right now, the 777.
Yeah, so we this is pretty funny. We planned this for 2 years, finally got to the launch date, and then FTX like crash like the day. It's either the day of or the day before that our launch is supposed to happen. So it's just like an absolute mess in a whole bunch of different ways. Like nobody's paying attention, right? So we ended up moving it until the end of the week, and there was a November 11th. And so on November 11th, we did it, but we still, even though everybody didn't want to talk about anything but the sex lives of the FTX founders and all that. You remember that, right? Just like meme after meme after meme after meme. It was pretty entertaining, actually. That's what everybody's paying attention to. But still, somehow we were still able to sell the entire set in 24 hours. And the floor price right now is about 5 times where it started. So that's, everyone says it's like a miracle because the NFT space is so dead right now and nobody knew about us, right? So what we are doing though is building a lot of hardcore fans, and we're really trying to convert a lot of flippers and speculators. There's a lot of people right now that are coming in that are finding out about us. They have no intention to find out about our stories. They don't care. They want to buy an NFT and are like, oh, comics, that sounds like something that's the next greatest thing. I'll buy that and then I'll sell it. But a lot of the people that are into hardcore NFT collecting, these degens, they're a bunch of nerds just like us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So our job now is to convince them that like this is not the one you sell. This is the one you keep and stay involved with our community. So we have to really think about what we're doing. At first, I was thinking, okay, we don't need these NFT people. They're a bunch of speculators, and we want people that are interested in our stories. So let's go after the comic book space. But when we found out how the comic book space is right now, I mean, it's literally just dying. It was just announced yesterday, like Comixology is like, I think they said they were laying off half their staff or something, 80% of their staff or something like this. It was in the news today or yesterday. And every week there's another like bankruptcy declared by comic book companies because manga is just coming in and crushing them, and Marvel and DC are sort of wrecking the whole comic book thing right now. And so anyway, it's really hard to tap into that market. The NFT people are willing to just take a risk. But so we have to convince them that, hey, our stories are actually good. Like this isn't what you're used to, of where it's all just a bunch of hype. Like we actually have really great writers, really good art. You know, a lot of our artists have done stuff for Marvel and DC. My co-writer Ace Harmon is amazing, and he's just so good at writing dialogue and making you feel like a character is real. You just feel that person. And unfortunately, our community doesn't see the scripts. I read all the scripts and I see them, so I know how good what we're doing is. And so we need time. We need 6 months or so to roll out a bunch of comic books, even a year, even 3 years. I mean, it takes a while, right? So we're really trying to get people in and say, hey, there's a future in this. Go speculate somewhere else, but if you're buying NFTs from us, keep them, because we're building a lot of value onto this. These stories will get better and better. The characters will get better. You know, so many people are interested in what we're doing. You know, we have very top people in the entire entertainment space that are watching what we're doing right now. They're all looking to get into NFTs. You know, some of the most famous names in entertainment are very interested in NFTs. They just don't like the whole Bored Apes thing, or they don't understand it. A lot of people like it, but most people don't understand it, and that are in this, and they don't really want their brand associated with that kind of stuff, with all the degens and the rug pulls and all of it. They just don't understand any of it. And so, but they see the technology, and they know it's something that they can sell and that they can build a community around that has a lot of staying power. There's a lot of interesting companies that are trying to do NFTs right now, a lot of trial and error. It's usually trial and fail, I would say. A lot of very famous people, celebrities, sports stars, they trying to do NFTs of themselves or in different ways. They're almost all failing in that the value is going down, or they're not allowed. And that happens because they're not able to build the community they were hoping to, that would really put a lot of value into these things. And so, I'm talking to some celebrities about this kind of stuff and advising. And we talk about it because a lot of celebrities have seen others do this, and they like NFTs, like they have Bored Apes or whatever. I just think it's cool. A lot of them were nerds when they're young before they became famous, and they like this stuff, so they have they have their private lives, and they think it's cool. They want to be involved with it because they think it's the future. Trying to figure out the right way forward. No one's really figured out, especially for a celebrity, to figure out something that's going to have staying power. For me, I think what I would advise a celebrity is to, if you're going to do this, you have to make it a 10-year plan, and you have to be personally involved, and it has to be authentic. If you're a sports star, you need to. I wouldn't just do it about sports. I would create a universe around that your fans are going to appreciate.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with them. None of them are that committed.
That's the thing.
I got an NFT. I bought two
Yeah.
of them from Rich the Kid, the rapper, and there was a special random drop that I guess I won. I got this. It's a handwritten. It's a paper that when he wrote this rap. I didn't know what it was. I was like, "What the hell is this? Well, I didn't buy this." And then a friend of mine that was part of the project told me, "Oh, dude, don't tell that. That is, you don't have any idea how special that is." So I find out that I won this. It's the rap song he wrote, just written on a piece of paper. But with that, I get to be a producer credit on the next album, and I get paid royalties from the next album.
Wow.
And then he just didn't do it. Just backed out of everything.
Oh, he just never did any of it.
He just backed out of it. He's like, screw the NFT project. I'm not having anything to do with it anymore.
Yeah, I saw 2 days ago. I talked to one of the stars of the Justice League movies. He was in all the Justice League movies. I can't say who, but we talked quite a bit about NFTs. And of course, he's heard about them. He knows about them, and I pitched the idea to him and some of his other friends or other actors. Idea. Because he's not a leading role actor in these movies. He doesn't play, like a Captain America. But all the guys that are, and the women that are usually the secondary roles, their dream, of course, is to get the leading role. And so I kind of showed them like what Keanu Reeves did. Keanu Reeves wrote a comic book called Berserker, and friends of his made it into a comic book. It became very popular. It's one of the most popular comic books right now. And Netflix, saw the comic, and then they are making it into a show. And I guess I think he's playing in it, and he's going to play the leading role. So the idea is that all these guys, they love movies, they love stories. They're all into stories, all of the actors, and they all have good ideas, and many of them would love to branch out from acting and doing producing and doing this. Because it's a challenge and it's different. And if they have good ideas. So the idea was, we go to actors, and I pitched this to him. He loved the idea. The idea was, just give me an idea. Just give me one page, one paragraph. Like, you have this idea for a story. I know you do in the back of your mind that would make a cool movie where you would like to play the leading role. Give us the idea. We'll write out, a one-page treatment. If you like that, we'll do a script. And if you like that, we'll make a comic book. And then you have to promote the comic book, and we'll make the comic book and make the actor look like you. So you'll be the most perfect person to play that role. And then the actor or actress and their agent will take that and use the comic book. You could take the comic book to the studios and say, this is what the movie's going to look like. And we'll make the comic book to be very cinematic, so comic books don't have to be cinematic. You can make them more cinematic by using more long format, some bigger frames and stuff that really capture it. And because our comic books can have sound, and because they can have movement, we can play with that as well to really give the decision makers in the studios a feeling for what this would look like. And so now compare that with them going to a studio and giving them a piece of paper, stack of white paper with black ink on it. Now they've got to somehow describe this, and the person behind them may be thinking something totally different, right? So we know that comic books are a really good way to get story ideas across. And if you spend the money making a script and they don't license it, well, you just lost all that money. But if you do a comic, at least you're going to get your money back, especially if you're a celebrity. You can talk about it. Somebody's going to buy it. So they can at least get their money back. So we turn a loss into kind of a guaranteed profit and give them more chance to get their movie idea made. So it's a really good pitch. And immediately he said, I have 2 stories right now, and that we can work on this. We'll talk about that in the next meeting, but he had wanted to talk to his partner about it. But I think it's a really good pitch, and I think there'll be a lot more of that going on. In fact, one of the sons of the owner of Fox, Rupert Murdoch, one of his sons, I forget which one, quit Fox, and he started a comic book company specifically for this purpose, to basically make comic books to get made into Netflix shows and movies. And it makes a lot of sense too, because I don't know what percentage of a comic book company's revenue comes from comics versus movies and merchandise, but it's probably 90% or more. One of the companies that went bankrupt recently, they presented a list of their debtors who they owed money to, 99% of it was not to the comic book artists and creators. 99% was to television studios, movie producers, script writers, all these kind of people, right? Like, and so it shows like how much of the comic book business is not around comic books, which is also why Marvel and DC are treating their core audience so badly. They don't care about them and their love of paper comics. They only care about action figures in Toys R Us or whatever toy stores there is now. I guess Toys R Us is gone, but they care about that. They care about Superman, selling Superman T-shirts. They care about Batman Lego movies, and basically milking these characters and stories for every penny they can get, and that's billions and billions and billions of dollars. And selling comics is a pittance compared to that, especially when they don't really make any money.
Talk about nostalgia, man. I miss Toys R Us. I heard there's gonna be making a comeback. Actually,
these things always do, right?
There's like 3 or 4 in the country left. They're all the rest of them are closed. But.
Yeah, I mean, there was markets changed and people are buying more stuff online. But yeah, what'll happen is they'll open. Somebody bought that brand. I heard what brand it was because I'm interested to watch for the exact same reason. It's so nostalgic. People really go for stuff that they loved as a kid, and every one of us Americans,
as an adult, if I was having a bad day, I would go to Toys R Us.
Yeah,
I mean, or I'd go pick my kids up as an excuse.
Yeah, because like
it's nothing but toys, man. It was like the funnest place.
I know. It's looking at all that stuff. My parents are terrible. They would not buy me anything. Like they're like, well, save your allowance money if you want something. Like they're brutal.
I would go and just feel like I was a financial advisor. So I've had a bad day. My office was across the highway from Toys R Us. I go over there and I go and I end up getting like the clearance toys. I just, they would be on sale. I just buy 4 of them for my kids. That was my excuse. And then when I come home, I got you these toys.
My parents
never want to go to Toys R Us and hang out.
My parents never bought me stuff like that, or it'd be like, okay, you can buy anything you want for up to $3. So like it was some tiny amount. They were trying to teach me the value of money, and which it worked. Because I became very entrepreneurial and I worked hard and stuff. So I guess it worked. So but at the time I felt very deprived because I saw other kids. Parents would just buy them unbirthday presents every time. Every time when they give them a much bigger budget, to buy cool stuff. And I never got like the action figures or any of that cool stuff I saw. If it was advertised on TV, I would never get it. I would get like Lego sets or something that was like educational, which I like too. But I wanted the action figures. I wanted that like Star Trek Enterprise. Remember the thing where you'd spin it and they would teleport and all that stuff.
My mom was pretty decent, but she would go back and forth. I was terrible. I remember everyone always told me I was terrible, and I would laugh it off. But I was in Walmart or somewhere, and this was the 4th shopping trip for Christmas. All right, and I'm walking, and these 2 old black ladies were there, and this woman said, "Ooh, honey, I'm coming to your house for Christmas." And I was like, "Ha ha!" And then her friend said, "Girl, you leave him alone. He's shopping for a charity or something." And I was like, "Oh man, maybe I am going over where I always do."
That's funny. That's really funny. That's really good. Well, that's good.
We went kind of long. So the Lightning Works portals are on sale now. We went into a lot of the things that they offer. Siege Worlds is a very fun game. If you want to play it, you can download it and play it. It is not easy. It's not easy.
I hate it right now. It's too hard. He made it much harder. All the really good players were saying it was too easy. They were winning it too easy.
I'll tell them to shut up because it's not. The first time I played, I'm like, okay, you start on the beach. I put my back to the water, and I was ready for everyone to start coming. I'm like, where are the monsters? And then, oh, they're behind me coming out of the water. This was a bad decision.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's very, very hard.
Yeah, it is. It is, but it's fun. Anything else you want to go over as far as the NFT launch or what's going on?
Yeah, I just think the most important thing is for everybody to know we have portals. We're going to have something that's a little cheaper called an amped pass coming in a few weeks, which is like a portal, but instead of distributing comic books, it will distribute everything else, like our mini comics, our PFPs, our clan tokens, which we didn't even get a chance to talk about. We have a lot of really cool stuff, and so it's a way of becoming kind of a part of the family. You get to distribute stuff, you get a lot of free stuff, and if you have a portal, you get an amp pass for free.
Cool.
And they're only like $400-$500 right now. The portals right now.
The portals.
So they started out at about 100. I think they're about 550, something like that. Depends on the day. But we think that there's going to be a phenomenal number of people coming in once they see what we're doing and how much better it is.
I never get offers on my NFTs, and it's weird since I got a portal. Like now, all the time when I'm getting emails like, you have an offer on OpenSea for you. I was like, yeah, I'm sure I do. But yeah, I'm holding on to mine.
Yeah, and there's the Divi community really came in and bought a lot. I think the Divi community has like 30%, which is amazing, and that's really amazing. It's amazing for the community because the Divi community, they love me and Nick for years, and they trust us, they believe in us, so they will hold long term. And so there's not many projects in the NFT space that have that kind of advantage, where a large number of these portals are not going to be sold for any amount of money anytime soon. You know what I mean? So that creates more scarcity. It's all about scarcity, right? And eventually, when things get scarce enough, and you have this sort of twin effect of the numbers of things going down and the number of people coming in by the laws of supply and demand, usually things work out in your favor. But we need time. We need time. So if somebody's watching this and that you like comics, you like games, and you want to be part of a project that's really dedicated to our fans, I mean, really dedicated. I'm an entertainer. I've been in I own a hotel. I'm in the hospitality business. This is what drives me, is like making other people smile, making other people happy. And so the communities like with Divi really stands out as one where people are really, really happy there. And that's how we got through Crypto Winter the first time in 2018. We're doing the same thing with Lightning Works, making sure our community is super excited and that it's fun, because, your time is valuable. We know that. And we want you to come and hang out with us in our Discord and be part of what we're building and fall in love with our characters and stories and grow with us. So if you're looking for something to do and you're into nerdy, geeky stuff, well, we're going to have a whole collection of different things that you'll get to be part of from a very early stage.
All right. Sounds good. We'll leave links below to OpenSea and to the Lightning Works website, and I guess these rules too. You can download I think from both places, but
I'll give you the link to our collection. The collection just started 4 hours ago on OpenSea for our first comic. So you can put that up there, and people can go and actually look at the comics and see what people are buying and selling them for, and buy them. They're not that expensive, so we're not talking about thousands of dollars here. We're talking about I think we're selling them for. The first ones they're going from $7 to $21, and then there's gas about $15 on top of that. So they're cheap, very, very cheap NFTs.
All right, remember to leave a like on this and leave a comment so you're registered to win yourself some crypto on the next crypto meme review, which might be tonight, or Friday, one or the other. It was good hanging out with y'all. You take care. I will see y'all in the next video.
Take care.